Winning Best Short Film at Durban and Zanzibar and other places really excites me because it just allows me to be a better filmmaker. So The Hangman looks at a story about a black prison warder who protects prisoners at Pretoria Maximum Facility. What happens is that the boy who's protecting these prisoners has his father, who he hasn't seen for 15 years, arrive at the prison. And the father doesn't, the son has no real idea about why the father left. He feels like the father abandoned him, upped and left him with nothing. And he's confronted with his father, who he's grown up hating. And his idea of his father is changed when he learns about what really happened when he left 15 years ago. I looked at a story about how does a black police officer work for a system that isn't for him. I saw pictures from old photographers, and I'm like, they're black police officers who are beating black men who are fighting for our freedom. That didn't make sense to me. So I wanted to find out what the psychology of somebody who does that is. That's where it began. I got inspired by visuals through photography. I didn't want to reference film because I thought to look at the apartheid era, everything was shot through stills. There was no moving pictures at the time, except BBC documentaries and Sky or whatever, CNN. So for me, stills, and I referenced all the famous old school photographers, Santu Mufokeng, Ernest Cole, Paul Weinberg, Alf Kumalo, Fanny Jason, all of those photographers whose photography was amazing because they really were able to run and gun. You go and you take the shot, you run out, you have to get out of the situation. So that was how I wanted the film to feel, very immersive. It's in your face, it's real. So the camera also, you'll see it's not very documentary. It's subtly shaking, slightly, but it's not. It's still very controlled and contained. So it feels, I think that helped the film feel real. So The Hangman, the short film, took me about, let's say, 5 years to write on and off. It was workshopped and developed. I said to myself after going out of film school that I wanted to really just tell a film that really was strong from a story point of view. So I made sure that I spent a lot of time and not rush because I was excited to shoot a film. But my process was one in which it was very collaborative. So I'd write the script and give it to people and ask them to criticize it so that I knew that I wasn't just in my own head. So the process was more getting opinions, but also not too many because then you were going to be too confused about what to do. So my process was one in which that it was a story about the people, which I felt that the people needed to read the script to tell me if they could feel anything. I always deviate or move towards work that I feel. So if I don't feel the script, whether I feel the emotion of being sad or the emotion of laughing, if I don't feel any emotion, I'm not interested in telling the story. So The Hangman, I felt an emotion towards it. These characters felt real to me. And I had a lady at the screening at Atlas Studio say to me that this story is the story about her uncle. This is not a true life story to me, but it was so truthful that it felt like someone else's story, and that really was for me one of the highlights of the film so far. For me, the challenges were being ready to do it because you always want to give yourself more time because you're so used to, 5 years is a long time to wait. So you're just like, okay, cool, no, it's fine, even if it's next week or the week after or next year. So there was a lot of procrastinating because you wanted it to be perfect, but you can never be ready. I guess being ready is you're in the moment. You got to do it now, So the challenge was just dealing with myself. The casting again was collaboration. So I always knew that I wanted to work with Lerato because I'd gotten the opportunity when I was a student to work with her, but I was an AD, and she did a short film called Umkungu, which was really powerful, and I really wanted to work with her, but she was. At that time, I thought, okay, she's out of my league. Like, I can't work with her. She's just like too good for me. So obviously some time went by, and then I spoke to her about the script a year before we shot the film. And I gave her the script, and she took it, and she sounded interested. And then obviously getting closer to the shoot, she was available, and we started speaking about the role more, and we got it ready. Then Tato Dladla, I always knew when I wrote the script, he was going to be the guy. Because he was just, we had the relationship from school. If you look at my short films at school, he was in most of those films. And then I got Ukulu Skenjan to play the father, who I was actually introduced to by Utum Sani, my producer. I was finding it very hard to cast that character because we needed to find a guy who would be both young and old. And it was hard because there were actors who I thought would be great, but they were old. And it was going to be hard to make them look younger. So I needed a guy who almost had both looks. And he was perfect. Winning Best Short Film at Durban and Zanzibar and other places really excites me because it just allows me to be a better filmmaker, and I guess it makes me more confident. So I'm more confident in telling the South African narrative, and I'm more confident as a filmmaker. So I guess it's built my confidence as a filmmaker. That's really the truth, personally, yeah. I believe the South African industry is picking up quite nicely because I'm seeing a lot of films that are at a global level. So it doesn't, you know, you look at trailers and you think, okay, there's always been a perception that, oh, this is a South African film that doesn't really have a story or it doesn't really look good. And I think from a story and a visual point of view, our stories are world class now. I think as filmmakers, I don't think we should be so quick to judge our own films because this is the industry that we're building and developing. We're far younger than Hollywood and other industries for us to really be that critical. Hollywood started off making crap films, I'm sure, too, but you get better as you go. So I really think that South Africa now is really getting the attention of the world. Africa as a whole is really getting the attention of the world because of the stories. And I think there's no continent richer than Africa with stories, you know, because our stories, you know, go as far back as the beginning of humankind. So this is where, for me, it's the epicenter of the world in terms of the narrative, like the narrative of humanity. So that's really exciting, and I think we need to appreciate that more as Africans and see what we really have. You know, we have a lot of raw materials that we've had, you know, and I think this is one of our stories.